Welcome to Muskegon Rising, a community service project of the Muskegon Rotary Club. Our purpose is to create lasting positive change. We've been doing that here since 1916. So, let's get started.
Hello, I'm Aaron Mikey, and I'm your host for Muskegon Rising. Today I'm with Cindy Larson from the Muskegon Chamber. Thank you for being here, Cindy.
Thank you for having me.
Muskegon has a rich history, including the lumber boom in the 1800s, being the arsenal of democracy in the 1900s, and Muskegon began its transition to a comprehensive economy in the 2000s. This comprehensive economy includes manufacturing, tourism, art, outdoor recreation, and food. Muskegon has great downtowns and great outdoors. Muskegon's prominence as a destination along the lakeshore has trailed other lakeshore towns. But the work of dedicated visionaries has set Muskegon on a trajectory for long-term success. Today I'm here with Cindy, the president of the Chamber of Commerce. Cindy has served in this role for more than 20 years and is a fierce advocate for the Muskegon region. Let's start the discussion about downtown Muskegon, Cindy. In the late 2000s, a mall was downtown, or the early 2000s, not the late 2000s. And you were really an impetus of getting that mall property once it was demolished. Talk to us about that and what that looked like.
Yeah, it's a great story because the chamber office was right across the street from the mall property, and then they chained it off, as some people will remember, because that was a big parking lot, and the owner had basically left, and his office was in Chicago, so he just thought he'd put a chain around the property. So that was kind of the impetus for all of us to get together and say, we've got to take some action. Because if we don't do anything, this could be sitting here for decades.
So you and a few leaders went to Chicago. And what happened? How did that conversation occur?
We did. I mean, the owner was in Chicago, and we were gonna attempt to buy that property and get it out of his control because we were afraid he was going to sit on it. And Chris McGuigan and I, that's the great story, just hopped on an Amtrak, went down to Chicago. Chris had some phone calls with him, and then we had the address. That's all we had. And we found ourselves standing in front of the John Hancock building, looking up, thinking, oh my goodness, this is where we're going to negotiate to buy this property. And we did kind of a good cop, bad cop. We didn't plan to, but it just fell into that way to say, listen, you need to sell us this property, but we're going to try to make a deal. And we knew we could get a hold of the property, then we had the power to actually do something about it.
That's amazing. So you show up uninvited and expect him to sell the property. I absolutely love that. What dedication from you and Chris to really drive the future success of downtown Muskegon and seeing that vision. There were three first buildings that were built. One was the Chamber building. One was the SIDOC building. Bill is a long-term investor in downtown Muskegon and an engineer. And then the Baker College Culinary Institute. Those three were built about the same time. How did those three buildings being built really drive the change downtown?
Well, that's a great question, because there had been some renovation of the historic buildings that had already started, but we were stalled with getting new investment. And actually, it was our friend Bob Skolnick who wrote a letter to the chamber and said the chamber should put its money where its mouth is and do something and build a new building. And so he plopped down a little chunk of change and said, I will put the first money down and I will help you raise money to build a new building. So that's how the chamber got into it. But that was enough to inspire others to take the investment seriously. And we were very fortunate that Bill SIDOC was still very active in our community, and he had needed a new building for his office so he could have a West Side office. Boom. So he kind of made that decision just on his own. And then, of course, a group of people went to Baker and said, hey, you would be an awesome anchor for downtown. And we had done some research to know how important it was to have education institutions in your downtown to bring young people. And so there was another group of people. I was busy focused on the chamber building at that time, so I didn't even get involved in that. But I know they really circled the wagons around the Baker College leadership at that time. And then, yes, they said this is going to be a great decision for Baker, and indeed it was.
It's amazing how a small group of people can really change a downtown and change that vision and provide that vision to everybody else, and then they begin investing. And, the Cobb plant was kind of the last remnants of that. It fell in 2018. I actually was back in Muskegon at that point in time. that's it. Nothing else along the lakeshore resembles our lumber era or our arsenal of democracy. How is that development working along the lakeshore and in downtown? And what are some key aspects that you see really continuing to grow downtown Muskegon?
Yes. And before I say that, though, our arsenal of democracy is alive and well in the industrial parks. And sometimes people forget that because it isn't on the water anymore. But companies like Rake and Cannon Muskegon and Halmet, they're all involved in government contracts and are doing all kinds of things to help us still continue to fight for freedom. So that is not lost on Muskegon. However, the fun and the sexy part of development is the waterfront. And so that's what people love to talk about. And we are so thrilled that we were able to get those buildings down. And I say we, because once again, there was a lot of advocates that said, you can't leave these buildings here. They have to come down. And it was many groups who went and advocated, whether it was with Consumers Energy or the team that bought the Sappy property and took it upon themselves to help with the demolishing all of that property to prepare it for the next generation and for the next 100 years. So it's not just a short-term job we're doing here. We are trying to prepare our community for the next 100 years, just as Charles Hackley had done at the time when he saw the economic transition taking place at that time. He was thinking really long-term, and leaders today are thinking really long-term about Muskegon Lake and what that should look like.
I think that's a great point, Cindy. This is a once-in-a-generation opportunity to make Muskegon what it will be into the future. And that next 100 years of planning is happening right now. One of those is Muskegon's Lake. It's on a list, Great Lakes Water Quality, and it's really close to being delisted. And I know this has been generations of work, years of work to get this done. How close are we, and what does that look like for the region once it gets delisted?
Yes, we are really close. And again, thanks to the advocates, our environmental friends, and many of them, I remember them when they started when they were in maybe even high school, became environmental advocates and spent a lifetime working to clean up Muskegon Lake with the help of the state and the federal funds that they were able to acquire. So that was a lifetime mission for a number of people that are near and dear to our community. So anyway, so now we're there. And everything from, we have not been dumping in that lake for decades. Our wastewater system, we've forgotten about it. We've had it for so long. People don't understand. It's still a unique and amazing system to keep us from dumping in those waters. So over time, and the fact that they're deep water, changing waters, the river, it has also helped to clean itself, to be that safe place to swim, fish, boat. But the state or the feds have high standards, and we have to meet all of those standards in order to be delisted. And it's my understanding there's just a couple of fine points that have to be taken care of. And once that happens, we're hoping by next year, but I heard that last year too, so I don't want to get too stuck into dates, but it is going to happen, and it's not too early to plan for that.
Ongoing efforts will make it happen by all those dedicated people. I know a few years ago, they were pulling out some old logs, and they found an old Muskegon Business College sign made out of wood at the bottom, and I think it's at the Muskegon Museum of Art. But it's amazing what was at the bottom of that lake. Have no idea how those things get there, but they find a lot of interesting things.
They do, and many people have reported about the billiard, the bowling pins and the billiard balls and all the things that Brunswick. And that was just standard practice. They really weren't doing anything wrong in their eyes at that time. And it was wood, so they thought it was fine to just throw it into the lake. But who knows what else was thrown into the bottom of that lake? Some stuff we really don't want to know about. But it's been so much work has been done. And then you've heard about the wood that's come out and how they made products with that wood, including these amazing guitars that they make down in Detroit that comes from some of the old wood that was retrieved from the bottom of Muskegon Lake.
That cold water preserves the wood and makes it used for other things. That's really amazing. You mentioned our wastewater plant. I think it was called Leadership Muskegon in 2000, and it's evolved into a new program now. And we toured that wastewater plant, and even in 2000, 23 plus years ago, that was the benchmark for communities in wastewater treatment. And I remember, that's one of the things I remember vividly, is that there's crops out there and they're watered by the wastewater, and you can't eat it as a primary source, but it's made into, I remember them saying, this can be made into cornflakes.
Yeah.
So what a model for other communities, and it has capacity. Some of that expansion, we're expanding that pipe out into Coopersville to help Fairlight.
Yes, and that's been so important for our food processing. Food processing waste is difficult to manage, and so the fact that we have this, I imagine that we're going to get even more food processors coming to our area, which is a great fit because of the farming so nearby. So that's been, whoever thought of that, that was amazing that they had the vision to know that was important. And then, of course, to go out there, if you haven't gone out there, you absolutely need to do that, arrange a tour. I always say to people, okay, get ready. We're driving out of Muskegon. I said, we are going to go to another land. And within, 15 minutes, you are in a place that you can't even imagine. It's like another part of the planet. But it's so important and does such great work for all of West Michigan now.
It keeps our waters clean, and it's a model for the nation. You mentioned manufacturing earlier, and you mentioned Howmet, and there's an investment also in North Muskegon, Cytiva, hundreds of millions of dollars, Northern Tool, Eagle Alloy, and Cannon. You mentioned several of those. We are still the arsenal of democracy. It's still occurring here. And as you said, not along the lakeshore. How critical is that to our economy in Muskegon County?
Well, it's still a way above average percentage of our economy compared to other cities of our size. So they're still creating a tremendous amount of wealth and high quality jobs and with benefits. And so these quality jobs are really what keep a community sustainable. We have to have long-term jobs, not jobs that'll come and go. So a lot of the companies that are here today are here again for the long term, and they're constantly trying to reinvent themselves as well to keep up with technology. And it doesn't look like your father's foundry anymore. It's very clean. There's a lot of robots. It's high skilled. As much as we can get our kids into those plants, it's so important because I think there's still a stigma that's in our minds of what it maybe was in our grandfather's day, and it's not that at all. And they need really smart, talented young people, dedicated, who are willing to continually improve their skills to stay with technology manufacturing.
Absolutely. It is not that factory that we think of from the 1950s, and our kids need to see that. It's a great career. Some of the manufacturers that we've mentioned are local people who own and have invested in our community for years. I think of Northern Tool and Eagle Alloy. Specifically, I see those owners in our community everywhere. But there are also huge players like Cytiva that are investing here, international companies. Why are they choosing Muskegon?
But that is such a great question. It is so exciting to see. I bet just in the last few weeks, the number of international companies that are looking at Muskegon for their North American presence has been fantastic. And there's a lot of reasons for that. Partly, we still have that manufacturing infrastructure that they need. Anything they need to build and run that plant, they can find here in the Muskegon area. And so we take that for granted, but which includes the wastewater system, right? And the great water, which a lot of them need, but also the skilled labor. We have, more CNC machine operators than any community of our size. And so they know they can get the talent. But also, we may complain about the snowfall, but it really is temperate weather. There's no hurricanes, there's no tornadoes, there's nothing that's going to put that investment in jeopardy that they can't manage. So that's another thing. And also, again, we're so close to it. We don't understand sometimes how easy it is for us to get to Detroit or Chicago, international airports. So these people can travel globally in and out of Muskegon relatively easily. So versus going into some mountainous region or out west where you travel miles and miles just to get to the airport. We can pretty much get anywhere around the world in just a few hours.
Very convenient. Muskegon has, as I think of the lakeshore, but even getting into the community, deeper into the county, we have parks galore.
Yeah.
They line our lakeshore. They're out by the wastewater treatment plant for mountain biking. Just so many opportunities to get outdoors. How does that impact our residents? Are they engaging in those activities? What's the beach look like?
Yes, definitely great to bring that up because just even what we just talked about, the manufacturing investment, they want to invest in a place where people want to live. They need to keep these employees. And so they are doing it by taking advantage of all these wonderful things that we have. We are so blessed. And I don't take that word lightly because I've been on some of the most beautiful vacations in the world. And I come home and I still go, wow, I live in one of the most beautiful places in the world. We drive by it every day, and sometimes we need to get away from it and see some amazing things in different parts of the country to really appreciate what we have out our back door, 5 minutes away, no rush hours. I mean, 45 miles an hour is not a rush hour for 5 minutes at 8 o'clock in the morning. We have to, make fun of ourselves for losing sight of sometimes the natural beauty that we have here. And we see that, again, appreciated through the eyes of the cruise ship visitors.
Absolutely. So how many cruise ships did we have in Muskegon last year?
Yeah, I think we had 19 around there. We had some weather issues, one canceled, but there were 4 different companies that came in. So there was we're saying about 2,500 actual cruisers. And of course, we're working hard to get just one more important line, and that would be the Viking cruise ship line. That would be the signature player in this industry, and those ships are twice as big as what we're getting now. So to have them, it would be just amazing to have them in Muskegon.
And millions, I read the study, and of course I can't remember the numbers because numbers are everywhere, but millions of dollars of economic impact in Muskegon. They're coming for the art.
Yeah.
Coming for the restaurants.
Yeah, they're coming definitely for arts and culture is their number one reason for being here, as well as to see the freshwater beaches and the dunes, to see the type. I mean, again, they're coming from places like Texas and Iowa and, the southern states. And for them to even see a very robust farmer's market, we take that for granted. You can get all kinds of fruits and vegetables here. Can't really get that in Kansas City. You get certain types of food there, but not what we have here. And so just the things that we take for granted. I've seen passengers go, is that a swan? Because they've never seen a swan before. So that there's so much natural beauty here that they're here to see, and they love to look at our architecture, that whole historic district with the Gilded Age buildings and the stories of the people that are very similar to what you might see on a television program of that era. We had what was happening in Pittsburgh and New York City was happening here at a small level in Little Muskegon. We have just as many amazing stories that these people love to hear about.
Absolutely amazing, the rich history of Muskegon and how it's evolved. Speaking a little bit about perceptions of Muskegon and how we take it for granted, I moved to back to Muskegon in 2018, and I was talking with one of my neighbors, and I said, "What are you doing this weekend?" I said, "I'm heading up north." Aaron, some people consider Muskegon up north, and it just made me pause for a minute because it really is just an amazing place to be and to live. And I know I opened with great downtowns and great outdoors. You represent Muskegon County as a Muskegon Lakeshore Chamber of Commerce. Talk to me about the great downtowns that are here. Everyone thinks we only focus on Muskegon, or Muskegon gets all the headlines, but every downtown has its uniquenesses and beauty.
It sure does. And I've really been revisited Montague, and if you haven't been up to Montague lately, and what they have on like 2 blocks is so fun. And to look at the architecture, and really take a moment to appreciate the breweries that they have there and the little gift shops, overlooking White Lake, and that's just one example. I mean, even Fruitport, if you head down to the little village of Fruitport, boy, have they stepped that up down there with their park right at the end of Spring Lake. There's just so many quaint little corners that people really they want to embrace it, right? Because it is something simple. It's we love, I love the city too, I really do. But as far as a daily lifestyle, to be able to incorporate that downtown, and still, if you want to, grab your kayak, and literally from those downtowns, you can get on your kayak and head into a great river or lake.
It's amazing. I will say I've been to a few of those breweries, but I always have to balance that with taking my kids to the local ice cream establishments, and just really awesome things to do for the family in breweries, but outside as well. You mentioned kayaking, paddleboarding, pontoons, speedboats, whatever you can do. Just so many opportunities.
Yeah, what about, and kids? I mean, we are probably primo when it comes to the kids, that elementary age to junior high. I mean, Michigan Adventure and the investments that they've made They are so fantastic for the young people in this whole fall fest that they did this year. That is something that, again, it happened over time, and some of the older generations may not even understand what a special place that is, but that is our driver for family entertainment. But from that, there's everything else, as you mentioned. You can actually rent all of this equipment, and you can rent all of the winter equipment up at the Winter Sports Complex, the luge, which is now year-round, with a zip line and the climbing wall. And again, other places have these, but not really within 20 minutes. Everything we do is probably 20 minutes tops. Most of the stuff that you do is within 10 minutes, and it's very hard to find communities like that.
And it's 20 minutes not driving 80 miles an hour. It's 20 minutes driving 45 miles or less through beautiful downtowns, through beautiful wooded dunes to get to these locations. It's picturesque.
It's picturesque. And that's why a lot of people, we've got that camera, all the time in our own hometown. And the little nature preserves that they're putting together too, the Muskegon Nature Preserve and now the Dunes Harbor Park. And as you know, at the wastewater, that's one of the top birding locations in Michigan. So if you text birding, you're going to see Muskegon pop up all over the place for the number of birds that we have in our community. And that's, of course, a hot hobby right now.
It is. Really, Muskegon, I feel bad because we've mentioned so many things. We've probably not mentioned more. We could go on and on. Cindy, anything else you'd like to add as we wrap up the podcast?
Well, okay, forgive me for all the things I didn't mention. I mean, all of our maritime history, right? We have all of that. We haven't talked about what's soon to be a destination art museum and all of the public art that we have. I mean, the list just goes on, and it's to have it all in just one community. And that's what I've said. There's a lot of places where you can go and get great art. There's a lot of places you can go to the great outdoors, but it's very hard to find a place where you have both of those in the same community. And I think that's what makes us most unique of all.
Amazing. Thank you, Cindy, so much for spending time with us today. And again, my apologies with yours for missing probably more than we covered. But for more information, please visit watchmuskegon.org.